Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 4 of the Conjugate Dad podcast presented by Common Athlete Performance Coaching. I am your host, editor, producer, jack of all trades, master of none, Dave Chase, and I'm joined by my co-host, Justin Commandoris. I think we said in the last podcast episode, I think all I do is just mispronounce your name. So today we're going to pronounce things correctly, and we're going to have a great podcast that is focused on Zone 2 conditioning. Justin, how you doing today?
Wonderful.
It's great. It's awesome to hear.
You nailed the last name.
That's great.
Which is amazing. I know it's a little bit more difficult than Chase, but
it's tough.
Alas, we have to work in stages to improve the way that we say certain things. Growth. I actually wanted to start off. It's not really a story. It's just some thoughts that I had. And one thing that I've noticed, and really not so much now, but more in the past, is with clients that I've had that have kind of come and gone, or just like people in general, and the way that I view things in today's day and age is, how we've become so easy to be critical, but we don't like taking critique as Americans. And you can see that on social media, right? Is one of the problems I feel like that faces our country is the lack of people taking ownership for their actions, but they are also very quick to, fly off the handle when someone does something that is deemed as unsavory for them. So I saw this video from Theo Vaughn, and everybody knows Theo Vaughn is like this big jokester. He's hilarious. I don't know anybody that doesn't love Theo Vaughn, but he actually made a video either yesterday or the day before about, he was just talking on genocide in Palestine. I don't have any real knowledge of that whole situation other than what's being presented to us on the news. So I only present this story as just like as an example. So he was speaking more to like the children that are dying on both sides, and how it's very unfortunate that all these kids have to die for everything that's going on. And again, whatever side you're on of that, is fine. But the bulk of the comments were, well, all the people that you hang out with are the ones that are causing that. And it's just funny to me how, like, in light of someone having a moment where they're reflecting on a situation, instead of seeing the positive of that situation, they chose to see the negative in that situation. And so again, like, he may not be someone that's super qualified to speak on that topic, but he was really just having, I think, an emotional moment, which I've never seen from any of his podcasts or his videos. It's always like super goofy, off the cuff, slapstick style comedy. And for him to like have this emotional moment, and then for people to like jump on him instead of just seeing like the positive of him being able to share that side of him in front of other people, was just kind of crazy to me. And again, that reminded me of this situation where people are so quick to kind of fly off the handle and tell you what your job is or what you're supposed to be doing, when they're not really super educated in the department of what it is that you're doing. And I've seen some of this in the past where, people, even though you may be an expert in a specific situation, people still want to kind of tell you, how you're supposed to be doing a certain thing. And the reason why I brought up to you the Sleep Outfitters situation is like, it was kind of ironic going in. I'm like, okay, we know nothing about this mattress situation, except that we know we need a new mattress, and it's probably going to be expensive for what we're wanting, right? So obviously the brand that comes to mind starts with Tempur and ends with Pedic, right? So when you start throwing that brand out there, you're going to be paying a lot of money, but you're also getting what you pay for, right? So going into this store where they carry all these things, we obviously have no idea on what to expect. And so this guy's taking us through, their process of how they get people on the right mattress and what they're looking for, and all the things that we asked people when they came in looking for supplements, or when someone comes to us looking for coaching, what are the categories that I need to cover in order to make sure that this is a good fit for them. So he puts you on all the beds and explains all the tech, and I'm just like taken aback by all this stuff, right? Like, they give you these special sheets to lay down on all the mattresses so you can try the ones that he felt like specifically meets your needs, similar to how we did things with supplements, right? You're only showing people the things that they need.
Underneath the covers? Am I like
no. You lay on top. You lay on top, but they're very thin because with the specific beds that we're looking at, they have like cooling technology in them.
Yeah,
right?
I was just out of mind here while you were talking.
That's crazy. Like, you lay on it and it's literally 10 degrees cooler than the area around it, and it literally, you can feel it through your clothes. So anyways, I imagine to myself, like, what if I go into this place and I start telling this guy all this stuff that like I perceive to know about mattresses when he's like the expert on mattresses? Like, wouldn't that just be so backwards? Even if you knew a bit about mattresses, it's still not your area of expertise. So I'm always going to default to that person. Number one, because I respect good service, right? So I want to let that man do his job, and it's fun for me. It's entertaining because I know what that's like. And I want to be taken through that process. Like I used to take people through our process. Right.
Right.
And so, he'd put you on the bed that he put us on the bed that he knew that we would love. And oh my God, we did, right? Like, it's not rocket science. Like, he knew based on what we told him that would be what we liked. What if I was like, man, I want to go lay on that bed over there just because that one looks, it just doesn't.
You could, and I'm sure that does happen with consumers.
Sure.
Yeah.
But and then at the end, he put us on a bed that wasn't as good, just so we could feel the difference, which he didn't say that, but so we could feel the difference between the bed that we laid on that we loved. And so in my mind, I'm thinking to myself, like, I want to stay in my lane here because I want to see how the price is going to be the price. It's Memorial Day. There's going to be sales. Whatever goodies we can get along with it is fine. But I'm not going to go in there and beat the table and say like, hey, I need a bed that has like all these specific things, because I just don't know anything about that, right? Versus I feel like a lot of people are really quick to speak on things that they really don't know a whole lot about, and that can create a lot of issues, especially in this area where it's like, I want to be really lean. I want to have a six pack, but I also, I want curves and I want to build muscle and all these different things. Right. And it's like, okay, well, the same thing with the mattress. You can either get it firm or you can get it soft. And there's not like a whole lot of variance in between, or there's like a middle, right?
Yeah.
And I know they make like separate sided mattresses that has like, it's split down the middle. So yours is firm and theirs is soft. And it's like, you can have that, but
sure,
if you're not really can you imagine their sales book? It's got to be like this thick with all the information on different mattresses. So
you have to be a highly motivated individual to read through the catalog and understand based on what Justin and Megan come in for, and their wants and needs and their price range and their time frame, and I mean just even the lifestyle, I imagine, because like she's in healthcare, she works days, right? But I mean, what if she worked overnights? That does kind of factor in. Or what if she works second shift but Justin works first shift? And like those are things, I mean, there's so many variables. But yeah, going back to what you said, like we have experts that are quick to judge. Like I actually, like, just a quick one, I was uploading one of our episodes yesterday, and I actually hit up an old professor who's a like academic scholar, like has ran multiple writing center universities, plural, that I met when I was in community college, Bristol Community College, shout out. And I said to her, hey, I want to cite things correctly and professionally for my podcast, and you are the only person that I like actually trust to tell me the real answer if I'm doing this wrong. And she actually said like, hey, like, let me get back with you. Like, I actually have to do some research myself, even though she has a doctorate and like just incredibly qualified human and like great human being, but like very good professional. It's like, yeah, I'm not just going to like give you an answer, because that's really how we have social media. It's bite-sized little, the what are those calls? The bite-sized like candies. Like, it's like, hey, here you go. Here's just a little bit of sugar, instead of like, hey, let me build the right answer for you based on what I'm going to do, based on my knowledge and my research, not just, hey, here's the answer, and like just consume more media. Because I feel like that's what it is. And you said like people just speak on things they don't know. It's funny you said that about like Theo Vaughn, because yes, like he doesn't politically align with everything that you or I may agree with, but to also say like his associates, anyone he's associated with, is directly impacting it, that seems like a bit of a stretch to me. But he is highly, I will say, just from being a longtime listener previously, he is pretty vulnerable, and will say like he was not very academically gifted, or maybe someone that like grew up with the best childhood, but he also like speaks on his like addiction and stuff, but he only speaks on his own addiction. He doesn't say, oh, well, I know what it feels like to be a heroin addict. Like, he has no idea. He's never done it. He's a cocaine addict. So,
and that's the thing. I think people are so quick to either fly off the handle and become an expert on something.
Sure. Expert.
And it's like, and that's where I use that analogy with that. I'm like, the guy is just having a moment of vulnerability.
Sure.
Regardless, like it could be anything, right? Yep. Regardless of who he hangs out with, like your friends are your friends. You can't, like if you're going to stay away from toxic people if they become toxic over time, but like if you have old friends that you hang out with forever, like, people change. It's not like you could change tomorrow, right? Yep. Like it just happens. And so you can't say, oh, well, I'm just going to write this person off because he's having a vulnerable moment because of who he's friends with. It's like, wait a second. Like, he was like darn near crying. I don't know if you saw the
I watched it, but now I feel unprepared.
Again, I know that wasn't like completely in line with the analogy of the Sleep Outfitters, but it was still, and I had just seen that, and it kind of reminded me of like how quick people are to be critical, but then when somebody wants to throw a critique back at them, it's like, whoa, wait a minute, like
they're above reproach.
Off-putting to me.
Sure.
I just think it's important to sometimes just like, if you trust somebody, just let them say whatever it is they're going to say. Like, everybody has the right, like the right context is here is like, if you have if you're open to debating about something, then let's debate it professionally, but don't get pissed off and throw stones when you live in a glass house. Like, that's
it's a healthy discourse is what you're lobbying. Yeah. I mean, that kind of goes back to the episode. I mean, we literally just published it last night. I did the homophily principle. If you're a Republican and you only interact with Republicans because you are loving the idea that you're always right, unfortunately, you're not going to be challenged with healthy discourse. And then that limits what information you're actually able to consume. Same with Democrats, same with independents. I'm okay with saying this. I just question everything at all times. So I actually love getting into debates with people over different sports teams. Being a New England sports fan in Texas is so fun, because these people will say, why are you not a Cowboys fan? Or, hey, your team sucks. So does your team. But I'm okay having a healthy conversation about what I believe your team is doing wrong and what my team is doing right. And if my team does something wrong, you bet I'm going to call them out, because that is how you grow from personal experiences and education. And that's why I think it's important to go to secondary education. If you can go to college and you can afford it and you can get some help, or you can go to a trade school and you learn. I mean, you and I, we couldn't be more different. I'm not a high level gifted athlete like you that put in the time at junior college or high school, junior college, Division I football and arena football. I didn't do any of that. I played 2 years of high school football. I played a ton of baseball recreationally. I mean, learning from you is awesome. That's just great.
The irony in that
a bunch of my ideas, and I love that you challenge me.
The irony in that, Dave, is that right now you probably know more about football than I do, because you just pay so much more attention to it.
Yeah.
Like we talked about this in episode 1, like I was just a very straightforward, go get that person that has the ball type of guy.
Sure.
I wasn't like a schematic expert.
Well, there's levels. Yeah, there's levels to it. When you have when you watch a football game and I say, oh, it's man coverage, and my wife, God bless her, by the way, for watching football with me, because I will act like I am Pat Summerall and John Madden. That's an older reference for you guys, but being like I'm going to narrate the game or commentate the game. I say, oh, they're running press man, and she says, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And I said, oh, they're really up on the line, and it's going to be me versus Justin. I'm like you just said, go get the guy, and there are people who watch sports, and it is crazy to me. It makes me laugh, like that they don't start to see like certain patterns when you see hockey players and they're moving in a square. You can see the square. Yeah. It's like, hey, just watch the square. That's all you have to really do.
Yeah.
And it's not. But if you said to me, here they're in, the what is it called, like deep cover 3 or cover 2, and I'm like, oh, I can't see that. I can't see what offense or what option they might be running. Or an RPO, but I can see certain schemes that, yes, there are absolute levels to this. And that is kind of what gets into our episode today with, you can go to the gym and you can go to your local, corporate gym, and that's totally fine. But, something that really grinds my gears, for lack of a better term, is people who do the same thing. And what killed me is I read your article the other day on Zone 2 cardio, which is, of course, our topic. And it was like, hey, I'm, 38 years old. Were you like 36, 37? And he said, I'm still training like I was a football player in college, but I hadn't been a football player in college for 15 years. I mean, why am I doing this? Something has to change. And so that's what was killing me, that people will beat their head into the ground with the same thing and expect to see growth. And that does lead to the other things, like you said, like, hey, I'm just going to be an expert, but I'm not going to learn anything about it. Or I'm going to hate someone because they challenge what I believe. But I really did want to get to, that was quite a bit of off topic. But yeah, it's absolutely true. Like you said, like people will claim to be experts. And I think it just goes back to diving into research and listening to people who do have more experience and education behind it. And that's why I always ask you. So, I really wanted to kind of like go over, you kind of sent me this today, right before we started recording, just guidelines for today's episode, like Joel Jameson, like really like leading into him. But even before that, you said John Davis is the one, which of course we mentioned, I believe both episodes, kind of showed you the foundation of Zone 2 cardio. Is that right?
Yeah. So I think really Joel Jameson, which if anybody doesn't know, it's, Ultimate MMA and Conditioning. We've mentioned this before. He came out with this book in 2009. And so obviously all these different methods Louis had been around for a while. GPP was always a thing. And I think where I kind of got in line with things is you don't realize what GPP actually means, just general physical preparedness, and how that is somewhat of a driver to like this whole Zone 2 movement that we see nowadays that's really gained a lot of traction, specifically since 2018 or whatever. But if you look at like the things that he's doing in this book, these were things that Louis and some of the other guys, and even my guy John, was doing prior to the writing of this book. Obviously, the detail that he goes into of all the energy systems, which we are not going to cover today. We're covering specifically aerobic Zone 2 work, but he goes into great detail on how all of these energy systems impact your overall fitness, well-being, your ability to build muscle, lose body fat, all these different things. And so for us, when you play football, for instance, right, like conditioning is important, but you are kind of toting that line of how can I get in really great shape and still maximize the amount of muscle tissue I have, the amount of strength and power that I have. There's so many different things in play there that when you look at something like GPP work or sled work or Zone 2 work, you have to be aware of the zone that you're in and the type of conditioning that you're doing, because it can take away from the different things that you're trying to achieve. So that's where Lou and those guys came up with the sled work, right? For them, the most important thing was how fast can we recover between bouts of heavy strength training, intra workout, and then outside of the workout. Can I come back later on tonight and get some work done? Can I come back tomorrow and be refreshed? And that's where the sled came in. Obviously a lot of these other modalities were created, like the prowler and all the strongman stuff. But for me, it was always about like the misery of sled work on one side, which was your zone 2 stuff, right? So that's your recoverability, your improved aerobic capacity, your improved cardiac output. And then on the other side was like the strict higher intensity conditioning with strongman stuff. We really kind of went back and forth between those. The other way to improve GPP is just reducing the amount of rest in between sets and like supersetting and doing different things like that. I can remember one of the more miserable try sets that I ever did was you would go 4 sets of 6 Bulgarian split squats, heavy. We're talking like 140-pound dumbbells, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, please quantify heavy, because when people are like, 60 pounds, I'm like,
nope. 140-pound dumbbells each hand, 120-pound dumbbells.
I don't think I've ever done that heavy. I think I've done one.
So like grueling, right? You're getting right up within 10 to 15 seconds. You're on the glute ham raise.
12.
And you're doing, another 8 to 10 reps there, then 10 to 15 seconds, and your butt's on the reverse hyper. And sometimes it was a combination of either 2 of those or even all 3 put together. Right. But you want to talk about like immediate, the 2 days later increase in strength and work capacity with your aerobic system. It happens very fast.
And right? It's not even taking you, because you do those trisets either with a partner or not. Let's say you did it with another partner like Edgar. You're getting it done in 5-6 minutes?
Yeah,
6 minutes. 6 minutes. Don't be a pansy. Get on there, do it, get it done. 2 days later, you go, you know what? That was hard, but here I am making progress.
That's what Lou always talked about, was like guys are just taking too long in their workouts. And so it's like,
I still take too long.
Yeah. Like, speed squats should be 30 seconds rest. It's one after the other. Same thing with deadlift, same thing with bench press, right? So
how can I scroll on my phone?
Yeah. So again, all of those things are going to raise work capacity. But it's more of like what, the goal for the person. And again, we're mostly talking about the general population here today. So obviously there's got to be a little bit of background on how this stuff became more and more apparent to me. But it all, like I said, it all started with the sled work and then the strongman stuff, which for us then it was weighted carries, it was tire flips, which you don't see, but I'm not talking about like little baby tires,
big either. Monster truck.
Talking about like 500-pound tires.
What's the giant monster truck name? That's like, his name's like Mega Death or something that he has.
All I remember is Gravedigger.
That's his name, Gravedigger.
Yeah, Gravedigger.
Yeah, like the Gravedigger monster truck tires.
So we would have the tire flips, the sled drags, the carries, and then usually like a sledgehammer on the tire after, something like that. And it would be like a medley, which if you kind of go back and look at how things are now and maybe how the way that I would lay things out, right, that's just going to be like, that's mixed modality conditioning, right? Because you're going, and then you're resting.
Sure.
And so if your heart rate, which we'll get into that in a minute, but if your heart rate is averaging a certain amount, that's really where you're going to end up working that system. So as long as you're keeping it, the work to rest ratio is proper, then you're still going to kind of end up where you want to be, right? So that's where over time, the concept of doing the cardiac output method and doing the zone 2 work started to make more sense, because I had those memories of doing this stuff. I just never really understood why we're doing that. You're always taught, like, if you want to get in really good shape for football, you need to do gassers or you need to run the mile. It's like, wait a second. And again, this directly relates to the general population, because there has to be context and a reason for why you're doing certain things, right? Sure. So here's a great example. A football play, David, lasts how long?
7 seconds.
7 seconds.
Yep.
Why are we running a mile to prepare for football?
I mean, I would say I don't really understand.
The only argument that ever comes into
sustainable game, I guess. I don't know.
So what is football is a power sport, right? Yeah. That's played 7 seconds at a time.
Right.
If you think about how the max amount of time, let's just say a guy cuts back and then runs a reverse and goes the other way, and then he scores a touchdown from the 5. We're talking 12 seconds, right? Tops.
Right.
Okay. That's still falling within like a certain work capacity versus 8 minutes, 12 minutes is very aerobic, right? Mm-hmm. So one doesn't really pay or play into the other. And so the only argument that you'll ever hear is like, oh, we're doing it for mental toughness. Okay. That should be developed via playing the sport. It should not be developed via training for something, for an energy system that you're never really going to use. I understand having it as a recovery aspect, right? Like, but walk with the sled, right? You don't have to go and run a mile and kill yourself.
Well, I also would say that I've seen those like clips from like the Patriots documentaries when they won their Super Bowls. They always like mention when Belichick was there and he's gone now. Mentioning that big hill in Foxborough, Massachusetts, where they would always go up the hill. It's not a mile. I think it's probably not even 0.2 miles, right? And it might be even 0.1. It's like, hey, we're going to do these hills at the end of practice because we do need to have our conditioning be better when we're on the field on offense or defense for 75, 80 plays a game. Patriots win the Super Bowl in 2016 against the Falcons after being down 28-3. Why? The defense on the other side played like 90 snaps. They lost it. I mean, that was it. They had a tipping point where the conditioning fell off and the Patriots were conditioned.
Best shape I've ever been in terms of like football playing shape. The spring of going into my senior year, during practice, I'll give you.
You say at SEMO.
At SEMO, yes. I'll give you an example as to why. But so we did 15 play drives. Where it was hurry up. And we did repeated 15 play drives where you're actually playing the sport and you're busting it even when you're fatigued.
Hurry up offense, 25 seconds or less. Go.
Fast placement of the ball, whether you got a first down, there's no huddle. They bring the ball right back, and then it's tackle football all over again. Okay? So the sport itself, that becomes relevant to the conditioning level. I got in the best shape, not from running gassers, but by playing the sport. It's the same thing with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Any person will tell you the best conditioning for Jiu-Jitsu is to do Jiu-Jitsu.
Well, and so at that amount of time, just so I'm clear, like for everyone listening, in a minute, to go back to what you said with speed squats, to get better at squats and to get better conditioning, speed squats, 30 seconds. Let's say I'm doing a set of 2 to 4 or 2 to 3 on speed squats. I can do 2 sets in a minute, like of time. You're probably running 4 plays in a minute, like actual minute. So I mean, if you're placing the ball, I think 15 seconds is probably the least amount of time that you can probably get the ball from the play is over to replacing the ball, checks at the line, and then go. Maybe 12 is probably. But I mean, that's astonishing to be able to get through that work capacity, like you said, and like be okay. And that absolutely, like you said, is specific training. The only way to get better at playing football is playing football.
Right, it's the law of specificity, right? It's like you have to, or the said principle, like specific adaptations on imposed demands. So it's like this is how this stuff relates back to the general population, in that if you want to train a certain thing, you need to know what that thing is and why you're doing it, right? So like, again, I've used this analogy before, but if you want to be highly competitive in running a 10K, but you also want to build muscle and bench press as much weight as you ever can, you're going to kind of want to pick which one of those you want to get after first. It's really hard to correct. It's really hard to do both, right? So again, that's where it applies to Gen Pop. Like, you need to know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. I mean, just writing it all down and taking notes as I always do. I mean, I think that, would you say that most of, I mean, not Joel Jameson, because I know like you didn't train with him specifically in front of you, but was John explaining this to you and saying, hey, like, we're going to get better by doing these little things, and here's why? And then he would be there for you to actually make those results? Or
he would always answer questions.
Some people just didn't ask questions.
Like with John, just, and he'll laugh when he hears this, but it would just kind of depend on the day and how busy he was. But like, I'm one of those people that when I told the Sleep Outfitter story, like, take me through the experience. Like, I loved that stuff. So I just wanted to do it. And then I would write down and then maybe think about like later, why are we doing it this way? But when you're doing something and you're seeing the results, like you don't really question it any further unless like you have the people that want to know why, they tend to have like a higher intellect, and so that's why they want to know why. And I'm cool, like I love explaining why on everything. We did this the other day with the reverse band and the chains situation, right?
Oh yeah,
and
when I asked you, yeah,
and I explained, the why on that to you. So again, it's like when you're in the moment, doing the thing, he's timing your rest intervals. He's making sure that your form's on point. Like, it's not his top priority to explain it like intra-set, right? Maybe he'll come back later or even at the beginning and say like, all right, we're doing this. Here's why, right? There would be days where I would go in when I came back later on and train with him after I was more mature. I was working at the sheriff's department. I went and worked with him for a little while because I had the money to and I wanted to do it. And so there I would pop in thinking we're doing max effort, and he's like, nope, we're doing strongman conditioning today. It's like, wait a second, isn't that? And he's like, no, it doesn't matter, we're doing strongman today. And so we do strongman, and then you go out there and you get blasted for 30 minutes, but then you come back and then you realize like that makes sense. Like, it all makes sense. Like, if you don't, he saw something that I needed in the previous workouts, right, that I didn't know, right, which was conditioning. And so he said, this needs to be prioritized properly. Sure. Because if my conditioning's not right, then I'm not going to be able to execute on the gym floor, and then that will lead to other issues. And I think this is exactly how we segue with all this stuff. For me, making this big shift for myself, right? Yep. Where you were talking about how I had mentioned that I continued to train like I was playing football. And yes, I did some conditioning, but it wasn't specific.
You weren't doing gassers either.
No, it wasn't specific zone 2 work. It was like higher intensity. The rest intervals were lower, just hard stuff. And what I really needed was the zone 2 work. And the minute that I started doing the zone 2 work is the minute that I started to see the adaptations in terms of my health, but specifically for me was the amount of body fat that I was losing from doing zone 2 work. And so specific to me, the zone 2 work that I was doing was the higher intensity walking, right, with the vest, or even light jogging. So I had this beautiful route at our, one of the big things that I miss about where we lived was my walking route. Like, it was
in Texas, or you're
in Texas, yes. And so I lived off of Spring Valley Road, and I would start off at my house. Well, I didn't live off Spring Valley, but Spring Valley was the road that was outside of the neighborhood. I'd cross over Spring Valley into the nicer neighborhoods for you. It's like beautiful houses, just lots of great things to look at. And so I would jog the first mile, and I would try to keep, a 9 to 10 minute pace, which would put my heart rate probably around like 145, 150 average for that duration. So for that first mile, the first 10 minutes, whatever. And then after that, I would walk the rest of the distance, not because I was trying to be able to run farther or whatever, just because I was using this because I learned what the impact that zone 2 would have, but I didn't want to overdo. And I think that's where people go wrong, is like, well, I'm just going to go out and do some aerobic work. And it's like, yeah, but if you're redlining your heart rate at 170 the whole way, you're not getting the benefits of the zone 2 work, which is
for sure. I wanted to go back to what you were saying just quickly. Right away, you like lit up like it was the first day of school and you had a new outfit. I had this beautiful neighborhood to walk in. That makes a world of difference, and I don't think a lot of people understand that. If you want to do if you're listening to this and you want to do cardio inside of the gym, no hate coming from me. I promise. But doing cardio outside and doing zone 2 work outside, or even if you have a garage gym, or even if you work out at a gym, but then the door is open or something where you can be outside and get a little bit of sun on your face, it makes a world of difference, especially if you're in a beautiful park or a beautiful neighborhood. I completely agree with you. Before we moved into this house, I had a sweet walking route, and I definitely just miss it because it was nice, beautiful homes, and now I just have to adjust to my new surroundings, and I've created new routes to support that, because it does start in the mind of how do I entertain myself while I'm doing something that in the previous times, weeks or months, I did not like it. And now, like you just said, you notice the body fat coming off. I've noticed that recently because I'm taking zone 2 more seriously, because we've had talks off air where you get on me and say, if you want the best version of yourself, you say this, you have to put in that zone 2 work. It's not really just the strength. It's all of it. Everything matters. Your food, your strength training, your zone 2, your sleep, your stress levels, your hydration, your relationships that you have with people, your interpersonal communication skills. And then also, like you said, like the intellect, like if you want to ask why, even if you have like a very baseline relationship with someone, like I would say you and I have a very good relationship, but if I didn't know you when you were doing something in the gym or in my neighborhood, I would go up to you and say, hey, don't know who you are, very curious. What are you doing and why are you doing it? And you just have to be upfront with people if you want to learn and be open and honest about it. And yes, be vulnerable. So that was just me going off on that.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think it's important also to just for people to be able to differentiate the difference between going for a walk to like walk your dog casually and then like the type of walking that we're talking about. As an example,
walking my dog.
As an example, I strive to when I walk, just like my general walk, I'm trying to hit between 13:30 and a 14-minute mile walking.
30? I hit 14:32 the other day. I thought I was Superman.
Yeah. So again, like that might seem crazy to people, but again, it's context dependent on like how good a shape you're in, right? So some people that the people that we see at Walmart, they might go for a walk and their heart rate's 160, right?
That's
versus
scary.
For me, that 13:30 or 13-minute mile, like I have to bust balls to get to 120 walking. You're in a hurry. Yeah, you're in a hurry. Yeah, it's not running. It's not running. Those are my people.
It's the speed walking. You ever see Malcolm in the Middle when Bryan Cranston gets really into, he's like unemployed and he gets really into speed walking? I'll put it in. I'll put the image up after when we publish this. But
Dave, I thought
legit.
I thought I was special one day. It was like 65 degrees outside, just like the perfect environment for it to not be fatiguing. I walked at 12:45. And I'm like, that's got to be some kind of record, right? And I go in and Google like, what's the world record for the fastest walk time? It's like 6 minutes and 30 seconds.
Right. Yeah. The Olympics.
Again, it's borderline. Like these people are running, but they're walking.
The other thing too, and like we got the Olympics coming in 2028, and like if America doesn't win the most gold medals, I feel like I have the worst summer of my life. And I'm not even related to anyone or know anyone that's in the Olympics at all at any level. But speed walking, we need to do better. Come on, America. We got to do better. I even had this conversation the other day with a friend. Like we need people in politics to be able to dunk. I think that actually should be a requirement. You should be able to dunk or deadlift 500 pounds to be elected from now on.
I think the deadlift probably is a little bit more realistic for the people that lack that agility and athleticism.
Wouldn't it be amazing though to see a politician just dunk all over someone and be like, that we need a pickup game between all the countries at the UN? That'd be amazing.
I think there's maybe only 2 presidents in all of history that potentially could have dunked, and Abe Lincoln was one of them because he was 6'4", and probably Obama would be the other one.
100%. Who's hitting a half-court shot for the future of America? I'm going with Obama.
Yeah. So, anyways, context dependent, right? So, if you can use walking for zone 2, but again, you have to know where your heart rate needs to be.
What's the level of walking that you're doing? Not scrolling on your phone.
Is it a lot of hills?
Right.
Do you have a vest on? Are you
plan your route? Don't just go outside. Where are you going? Plan it like you're going to the grocery store. You know how to get to the grocery store.
Sure. So again, you have to understand what's going on. And I think, what we're looking for here, because everybody's different, is a heart rate of 65 to 80% of your max heart rate at the highest. So to get that equation, you're going to take 220, subtract your age, okay? Whatever that number is, that's what your perceived max heart rate is. That's not like the most accurate you could be unless you like go and do a VO2 max test and stand on a treadmill and have this thing suck in your face the whole time. But as close as we can get with just standard math, then what you do is, let's just say your number comes back at 175. Then you take 175 and multiply that by, on the low end, 0.65, on the high end, 0.8. Anywhere in there is going to be considered aerobic zone 2 for you, likely. Okay. So now let's say.
I just did that, by the way. I just did that. I'm 33. I got 87. So 220 minus 33 is 187.
187. And then you take that and you're going to multiply that by either 6 all the way up to 0.8.
0.6 is going to be 112.
Right. So that would be like what you would look for when you're walking, right?
Yeah.
Versus if you wanted to if you wanted to push some like left ventricular hypertrophy, where you're able to take in more blood and oxygen more rapidly, right? And get in better shape, lower blood pressure.
We need that. We need that. We were talking about that off camera. Dave, do you have high blood pressure? Yes, I'm 231 pounds. I have an 8-month-old baby, and I'm married. So
yes.
Yes?
What's important here? Yes, lower blood pressure. All of those different things to get the benefit.
I love my wife. She doesn't stress me out. I'm just stressed. Sorry, Emily.
We could also talk about how, and we will talk about how zone 2 impacts mental health. But so those are things that you have to be able to look at and understand when you're performing or attempting to perform zone 2 work. So for me, it started with, again, light jog, and then the heart rate is obviously and naturally going to come down when I start walking, and then I extend that walk. So the light jog is 10 minutes, and then another 30 minutes of walking that ends up being, 3.5 miles that I'm doing for 45 minutes. Okay.
Right.
We need to, the amount of time now becomes super specific. Hopefully I'm not jumping around too much here, but
no, I'm reading through your notes that you sent. And I think it's like going back to what you said, to reiterate what you said. We need to get our perceived max heart rate that is not absolute, because science is not absolute. It is a equation-based science where you trial and error. 100 years from now, if we're still killing it on the earth, then, this might change. I mean, we at one point believed that the sun and every planet was rotating around us, and then we realized that was actually not true. So this could be something that 100 years from now may not be true anymore, because we've developed into something else. That's how evolution works, everyone. But yeah, so we have the heart rate, like you said, and then get your zone 2 work to, you said that the higher end, 0.8 is what now?
So there's going to be that area that you kind of want to live in.
Okay, so you're living in between that. Okay.
Yeah, the closer you get to 0.8, if you didn't have a heart rate monitor,
right,
the harder you would be breathing, the more you'd be sweating, you'd be less likely to have a conversation, and you're pushing towards that lactate threshold where you're starting to feel that burning sensation in your legs. That's where you're getting out of zone 2 into zone 3 and maybe even zone 4, versus during zone 2, if you didn't have a heart rate monitor or a watch or something telling you where your heart rate was, you would just think of it as like you're working really, really hard, but it's still conversational. So I'm like, yeah, Dave. And so, and this one time, like you're breathing, but you can still talk, right? Yeah. And you're getting to that point where the lactate's building up, but it's not overwhelming, right? That is where you want to stay. Oh, depending on, am I using this to enhance my aerobic system, or am I using this to enhance specifically recovery and like mental health stuff? That's where you stay either, lower end 65% versus like closer to 80%. You're going to be pushing that cardiovascular health, where you're decreasing blood pressure via that left ventricular hypertrophy, when you're really opening up those blood vessels so more can pass through, more oxygen consumption, all that kind of stuff. So without getting into too much science on those things, that's going to be where you want to kind of hang out at when it comes to like your general zone 2 work. Now, there's certainly a ton of things that need to be considered here. But I think ultimately at the top of the mountain, it's the work that I'm doing, I'm maintaining that average heart rate of whatever that percentage is. So let's say it's 130 beats per minute. When I stop my watch, I want to just make sure that I am averaging, my average for the session was like 130, right? You can get up to 150 on accident. It's pretty easy to do. As long as you're bringing it back down and you're averaging that, then you're good. Also, better for it to be something that's like more cyclical in comparison, which we're going to go here anyways, to like doing CrossFit. where people perceive sustained bouts as training their aerobic system. But the reality is, the minute that you introduce a moderately heavy or a heavy implement, what goes up? Your blood pressure. Yep. And so that then defeats the purpose of what we're trying to do, which is expand. So doing barbell complexes every now and again, fine. It's working a specific energy system. You're doing it for a specific reason. Maybe it's entertainment. Maybe it's just you want to do something hard. Know what you're doing and why you're doing it, right? But when you're looking at doing the harder stuff, the heavier carries with weight or the barbell complexes or even like really heavy kettlebells, your blood pressure is going to go up some. And so that, again, is defeating the purpose of what we're after with Zone 2. So you need to know what you're doing. And so I think a lot of times people with CrossFit, where they're going wrong is they're not doing enough of just aerobic stuff. It's we're doing the Metcon or we're doing the WOD or whatever it is, right? But it's just not, there's no cyclical work that's being done for an extended period of time, which is the reality is going to be, 30 to 45 minutes. Their 30 to 45 minutes is red line heart rate, a little bit of rest, bring it back up, a little bit of rest, bring it back up, get as much done in a short period of time. That is not Zone 2 aerobic work, and that work does not give back to recovery. It does not fill your cup back up. It empties your cup because it is stress. Versus Zone 2 is more, if you even want to call it stressful, it's really not. But if you even want to call it stress, it's a type of stress that's enhancing your ability to tolerate stress. CrossFit is not doing that, okay? Even though people see benefit from training for CrossFit, they're not getting Zone 2 benefits, because when's the last time you went to a CrossFit box and saw somebody just riding the Airdyne bike for 30 minutes at a cyclical?
They might be there by themselves and the gym is closed because they're probably doing it then.
Maybe.
Certainly not during like a WOD time.
Not during a class, right? So those are some things to kind of take into consideration. Now, that would then take me to how much is too much, okay? So again, you have to know why it is you're doing what you're doing and what's the goal that you have in mind, right? But with concurrent training, we can scratch both of those itches at the same time, or multiple itches at the same time, so to speak, meaning like I can train to be strong and powerful and build muscle while also being in really, really great shape. It's just a matter of like, how much of each thing do I need to do?
And this is the baseline, like reading from your blog posts, is like, hey, I'm trying to be like super strong and I don't want to lose any gains from doing conditioning. It's like at a base level, like I really do question people and like their like media literacy. I feel like I say that like every episode. But like, if you don't understand you can do two things at once if you apply it correctly, which is what you're talking about right now, then I just don't want to have conversations with those people. And I'm not calling those people stupid. It's, you don't have to necessarily pick one. You can do, I love pickleball, but the Zone 2 work and the strength workouts are actually helping me get better at pickleball. And some people believe I can only focus on pickleball. And now I want to be a local pickleball pro, which, by the way, the standard's very low. So it's like you can do everything all at once, like you said, if you're applying it in the correct amount of time over the course of the week. Sorry, go ahead.
Correct. No, and I 100% agree with that. So, well, we know there's extremes on both ends of that spectrum, right?
Absolutely.
There's the people that are, bro, I don't want to lose my gains. Why in the hell are you having me do so much conditioning? And then there's the people that are like, I'm trying to lose fat. All I want to do is condition. I can't do the strength work because it's going to take away from my conditioning. For what we know, fortunately, is like both of those people just are, let's say, just incorrect, maybe, in their thought process. Whereas like you can kind of sit in the middle and pick and choose what you want to improve, and then put, half your eggs in this basket, 2 of your eggs in this basket, and 4 of your eggs in this basket, and still make gains. What we know about, at first, how much is enough to maintain your aerobic system. It's really, 2 to 3 30-minute bouts is really what you need to maintain a good aerobic system, right? To be honest, everybody should be doing that. That's like the minimum is 60 minutes a week, separated into 2 sessions. That's going to be where I found to be like the most beneficial for people that are trying to gain muscle and strength. but they don't want to lose or either that or they were doing too much on the conditioning side to begin with, right? So we pull them back off of the high intensity or what they deemed to be high intensity interval training, even though they weren't actually doing that. They were just doing high intensity training, which is about 85% of your max heart rate sustained for a certain amount of time. Cycle bar, F45, Orange Theory, even the HIIT classes they do at Crunch.
Here come the cease and desist letters.
Not that there's anything wrong with.
Thanks for listening, guys. We're canceled.
Not that there's anything wrong with those styles. We are well within our legal rights to talk about these things because I'm not doing them at all. I'm just telling the truth. They stay in that 85% heart rate. Sure. What population of people tend to gravitate towards that? The 35 and over female category. Okay. Sure. We know cortisol is already an issue. Stress is already an issue. All they're doing is they're pouring a ton of stress into their already full stress cup and eating 1,200 calories a day. And that sets you up for a metabolic disaster, essentially, right? Versus you bring that zone down into zone 2, you bring that heart rate down just a little bit, and you do that cyclical work. And now we can build muscle, we can lose fat, we can eat a nice diet and feel full and enjoy life and not be miserable all the freaking time, right?
Application of it, Justin, that kills me, because
that's all it is.
Say, like it's 91 degrees right now in Georgetown, Texas, where I live. I mean, you're used to the Texas heat here, and people will say, well, it's too hot. Well, I mean, you can get up and go in the morning. You can stay up late at night after, if you have children to watch, someone to watch your children. But go with them after dinner. I mean, the consistent application of, I don't want to do it on the weekends. Like I get, the people that are weekend warriors are weekday warriors where their kids are in school and or daycare or have a family member watching them or a family friend. And I totally get that. But it is the end of May. If you did this for the entire summer, by Labor Day, you would be unrecognizable if you just took those 60 minutes a week and then just added in. I always think Sunday is like a double trouble, like walk day, like a long walk, short walk, family walk, solo walk. I really believe in that. Like it's just mental benefits of going with the family, and then the other mental benefits of, I need to think on this walk. What am I going to talk to Justin about this week? Work other than this, this podcast, and then just like daily life, listening to another podcast. I mean, you just need to have that time. And like, I don't have time. I mean, that just kills me. Like, we all have time. Our 24 hours are definitely different. You and me, you have.
I grew up in Florida, so I thrive in the heat. So I love the heat. Like, I'm not even I mean, it's 68 degrees outside here right now. So
that's beautiful.
So yeah, but anyway, so it's like I prefer that environment, but I also know that like my heart rate's going to be higher when it's hotter, so it's easier for me to hit that zone too. So maybe I don't have to use the hardest modality possible to like I used to go and do some of these WODs in the middle of summer in Waco, and like these people are just like dead. Like there's just no way that you can sustain doing that type of metabolic conditioning 7 days a week and expect that you're going to make strength gains and consistently PR and then gain muscle.
And they're doing it at 100-degree weather at 5 p.m., which is like 5 to 6, which is the highest point of the sun where we are at that time.
Part of the problem with if you even wanted to call it a problem with CrossFit is that 80% of the people that do CrossFit are looking at the 20% that look great, as an example, that have the genetics, the athleticism that came from an athletic background. And they're saying, oh, because they did it this way, we should do it this way too. And it's quite the contrary, quite the opposite for most people. You shouldn't be doing what that 20% is doing because you're not on that level genetically yet, or you're not on that level skill set wise yet. So a lot of people will say, well, like, why do all these people that do CrossFit look so good? Well, the ones that you're seeing on social media, for instance, only half of their training is Metcons or conditioning. The other half of their training is conjugate, is muscle building, is powerlifting, is Olympic lifting. And they're doing it in a way to which they can gain strength because they know that it's important, right? So they're not seeing the big picture. They're only thinking like, they're doing CrossFit, so we're doing CrossFit. It's like, well, you need to kind of define what CrossFit actually is. CrossFit is just high intensity training, right? And it's like if you're maxing out and you're doing 3 sets of 5 on 85% of your squats, are you going to perform better if you're resting 30 seconds between bouts, or if you're resting 3 minutes? Nobody in CrossFit's resting 3 minutes. It's just not like, it's not part of CrossFit. No. Anyways, right? So that's on the low end of what we can do is 60 minutes, right? Now, on the high end where we get into the interference effect, I believe the research says anywhere you're safe under 210 minutes per week or under. Anything over that will start to, there's 2 examples here. You will start to see an impact in your strength and in your ability to gain muscle, okay? Just because of the stress effect of all that.
This is 210 of strength per week? Is that what you said?
No. 210 minutes of zone 2 work or above conditioning is going to eat into your ability to recover.
3 days a week, that's over an hour. That's 70 minutes. I mean,
correct.
Days a week.
Yes.
That's 42 minutes. I mean, that's
not. So again, that's a lot, right? That's somebody that's training for a marathon, so on and so forth. The other thing where people miss on is that if you're doing conditioning over, let's say, 20 minutes in addition to your strength session, that will bleed into your ability to get stronger and gain muscle. So you need to separate your zone 2 work and even your walks away from your strength training.
And I've done this too. Where it's just like you have to get it done.
You want to get it done.
Steady state, and it's you writing, hey, like, this needs to be the opposite time of the day.
Right.
And most of your clients will just be like, all right, opposite times. But of course, me, Dave Chase is always going to say, well, why? And then you just said it. You have to separate them. Why is that? It's eating into those gains, like you just said.
Well, think about it. If you do it, this is a very gray area. If I do my cardio before I strength train, what am I burning through? Glycogen, right? So muscle glycogen is going to go down because I'm using that for a lot of people, again, depending on your heart rate. So somebody doesn't flame me and say, well, no, you don't use glycogen for this, whatever. What I'm saying is that you're going to burn through glycogen for the most part if you have food in you, right? Like, unless you're fasted and then, you're going to use fat. Shut up. You're going to burn through glycogen if you do 20 or 30 minutes of cardio prior to strength training, right? Yeah. Which will impact your ability to perform during the workout. So that's X1, okay? Yeah. X2 is if you do it at the end, after you've strength trained. I'm now eating into my recovery because when you're done strength training, I want to get back to homeostasis as fast as possible, right? Yep. So that's why we do box breathing, stretching, different things like that, right? So both of those are kind of no bueno. Now, anything under, like, sometimes you'll see me throw in like a finisher, right? Those don't go over 10, 15 minutes tops, okay?
No, that's okay. 10 minutes for me.
It's part of the workout, right? And we're conditioning a specific area. It's not like we're going out and we're doing 150 cleans for time. No, that's not what we're doing here. We're doing light kettlebell work or something just to finish things off at the end to bring up enhance conditioning in a certain body part or whatever. Okay. So those are the 2 things where you have to look at the interference effect and say, if I'm doing either of those 2 things, which is going over 210 minutes for the week or doing cardio conjoined with a strength workout, those are no good if you want to preserve muscle. Now, you can still work to keep muscle. For instance, if you're training for a marathon or something, you should still strength train because you want to keep as much as possible. But we're not setting PRs. It's just not going to happen. So that's where you have to look at.
Tempering your expectations and understanding. It goes back to, you said you wanted to train for this marathon. We have to do everything we can to increase your speed, endurance, and preserve as much muscle as we can. You can't set PRs in the weightlifting room and set PRs out on the racetrack. Kind of have to pick one. You can't sit on the fence. You can do the best you can to maintain what we have in the weight room. But if you really do want to focus on that marathon, like you said, I mean, we have to go all in on the marathon.
And that's where, again, but I thought concurrent is you can do both at the same time. It's like, yes, you can and you should, but there is always a point of diminishing returns with everything that you do. And so please make it make sense how somebody thinks that they can run 20 miles a week and add 100 pounds to their squat in 2 months. You gotta, like, basic anatomy, basic energy systems, basic biology, you're not going to be able to do. First of all, your body doesn't want to do either of those fucking things, right? Like, rants, get the kids out of the room.
Yep.
Right? Your body doesn't want to do either of those fucking things. It's just not, like, your body likes to be comfortable at homeostasis where it's safe and relaxed, and it's just not realistic. So, but what we're going to try and do is we're going to try and beat the shit out of ourselves on both ends of the spectrum and hope that I can do both this. You just can't. I think even if you had no job and you were taking all the performance enhancers and you slept on the best $18,000 Tempur-Pedic that's out there, and you had
they got it Sleep Outfitters.
Do I?
I said that they got it Sleep Outfitters. That's called the callback for anyone who doesn't understand comedy or situational comedy.
So even if you were doing all of those things and you had elite genetics and you're like 22 years old, right? Like tip top, you're still going to have a lot of trouble recovering from both of those things, because we know with running and ground contacts and forces and all that kind of stuff that there's going to be a lot of issues with your ability to then go and try and produce force under the bar, right? So it's just like you're trying to play both sides of the thing. You're trying to have your cake and eat it too, and it's just not going to work. It never works.
Yeah.
Right.
No, and going back to what you said, like training specific areas, 30 minutes a day would be 210 just for everyone. I mean, I did the math for everyone here. You can get out. We're not saying that you have to get out for a 30-minute walk every day to achieve your goals. That would be good for you. It would be good to make time at the end of your day or the beginning of your day. I mean, I know I've texted you this before. I said, wow, I'm so much more productive during my workday when I start my day with exercise, whether it is walking or, in my opinion, you should not be loading up 500 pounds, or anything over 75%. That's just my own opinion, obviously. So disclaimer on that. Anything over 75 to 80% on your back or on your bar with no food in you at 5 o'clock in the morning when you just woke up at 4:30. I think that is insane. And I have coached people in the past doing this, even currently. Well, I just wanted to get up and do it. Okay, cool. Wake up for an hour and a half before and make sure you eat and hydrate 1 liter of water before you go work out. Well, I don't want to do that. Okay, well, I guess you don't want to make gains. Like switch it to a walk.
Yeah, we're adding that to the list of podcast topics is like fasted training or fasted.
Oh man, I saw it today. Fasted workouts
for women.
Like no.
Hashtag fasted. Anyways, so the reality there is, I'm going to try and see if I can remember where I was going here, is you can do multiple things at the same time. It's very hard to be successful at a high level at doing both of those things. Now, context on what David said, because I just remembered it. I'm not telling people that to count your basic walking as conditioning. So somebody's going to say, well, I'm going to stop walking because I'm doing more than 2. No. If you go out and you walk for a mile and your heart rate barely gets over 95 or 100, you're not eating into anything. Walking is good for you. You should be walking at least once a day. That's outside of your conditioning work.
Okay, now, I thought you were talking about non-exercise. I said NEAT, non-exercise activity, thermogenesis. That's
which I believe walking should fall into that category, even though people would say it's exercise. We have 2 legs and we are bipedal for a reason. Okay.
I would say walking is, I would disagree. I think walking is 100% an exercise. At some level, at a certain level. Obviously, walking to get your mail outside your house, that is not walking. But
okay, but again, if someone was walking at that pace, what are we talking about? We're talking about NEAT.
Is that all they're capable of, though, Justin?
But I'm saying for this, again, like specific adaptations to impose demands, right? So
I would say no, that's not exercise then.
Correct. So going out and busting it on your walk, exercise, sure. going out and just doing a general walk the dog for a mile plus.
Grab a newspaper at the end of your driveway, come back, not extra.
Or I have a walking pad at home and I'm working at the desk, my stand-up desk, right? I'm just taking steps, right?
Yeah, that's
not exercise. Sure. Yeah, right? So again, people need to be able to differentiate and understand, like, we're not talking about like, don't get 10,000. Yes, get 10,000 steps a day or 15,000 or whatever.
I think a baseline for most Gen Pop should be 7. I think 7,000.
Yeah. I think that's generally what they say for longevity. But again, like, if you're an overachiever, right? Like,
10 is great. My watch died last night. Emily and I she was laughing at me. She's like, "Oh, you're not going to get your steps today." And I said, "I'm out here wearing my 20-pound weight vest. We went for 2.5 miles. I don't need to prove it to anyone because I know I did it."
Yeah. So don't get those two things confused. Just it's all going to be dictated by where your heart rate falls, right?
Right.
So now, as far as like application, because I know we got to start to kind of wrap things up here. When you're looking at how to apply this, right? Most of your zone 2 work, for just using cardiac output method as an example, needs to be cyclical in that conversational pace, 60 to 70%, right? You can also use like the mixed modality method where I'm somebody that's very type A. I get bored easy, so I'll do 20 cals on the bike, moderate pace, couple kettlebell swings, couple carries. I can still average 130, right? And I'll do that for 30, 35 minutes. And that's good, right? There's a couple different ways, but again, it's all about the average. You can apply it however you want, as long as you're not doing like adding in the barbell stuff where your blood pressure goes up, okay? Because that defeats the purpose.
Sure.
So going a step further, when you're looking at how, what are the benefits as to why we're going to do zone 2 work? Because we sat here and talked a lot of crap about everybody needing to do zone 2 work. Like, they need to understand why outside of what we already explained. So number 1, you want to improve your aerobic capacity. Okay. So training in zone 2 enhances the body's ability to use oxygen efficiently, which can lead to an improved endurance over time. And I say over time, and I'm going to put a little bullet point there and say over time means pretty damn fast. We're talking days. Okay. The caveat is you can lose it in days too. Okay. It's easy to maintain, but if you stop doing it altogether, you'll notice that huff and puff comes back.
Wait, let me say it. So if you don't use it, you lose it? Like in 40-Year-Old Virgin? Yeah.
Yes,
when
exactly.
You go to the sex education class.
So if you don't use your virginity, you lose it? How does that even?
And I think one of the teachers says, like, "Are you some sort of idiot or something?" Like, he said something like off color or something. Yeah.
So number 2, fat oxidation, right? This is what everybody's trying to get after here is how can this help me lose fat? So the intensity level, which also this relates to zone 1 as well, if you're fasted. This intensity level does encourage the body to utilize fat as a primary energy source, right? So this can be beneficial for weight management people as well as just like general metabolic health, okay? So right there, 1 and 2, that should be plenty, right?
That's a start, yeah.
We've got so much more though. This is where the get jacked people are wrong when it comes to, I don't want to do cardio for this reason. Well, doing zone 2 work enhances mitochondrial function. Okay. So zone 2 training promotes the growth and efficiency of mitochondria, which we know is the powerhouse of the cell, correct? So these are energy producing cells, which can aid in building muscle because the cell can do more work and provide you more energy via ATP. So doing zone 2 work helps you build muscle. Okay. Increased cardiovascular health. Regular zone 2 cardio can lower resting heart rate, blood pressure, potentially even increase your VO2 max a little bit, depending on like what your genetic ceiling is there. And it will reduce the risk of heart disease and improve overall cardiovascular function via what we talked about, the ability for your heart to pump more blood a lot easier and bring in more oxygen, and all these different things are going to lower blood pressure, like I said, so on and so forth. Okay. This is a big one for me, improved recovery. So your ability to do different things and recover in between sets, but also in between bouts of exercise, you're able to recover faster because it's moderate intensity level will kind of allow you to, let's say, just like simplistically kind of get the blood flowing and kind of flush the system a little bit better. But again, if you're able to take in and expand those blood vessels, you're getting more fresh blood into the system, which helps you recover better, right? So enhanced performance. Zone 2 is going to increase your lactate threshold, and this is going to allow you to do more higher intensity bouts or efforts. And then probably my second or first favorite is the mental health benefits, right? So I mentioned briefly that doing zone 2 conditioning or cardio allows you later on in the day, later on in the week, to endure more stress at a higher level, right? Not only that, but it's allowing you to reduce anxiety and depression and improve overall well-being. So you can kind of relate it to like the runner's high, right? What we know with running is that there's going to still be stress involved.
Right.
But if we're doing cyclical work, there's not any real stress that's involved. So all you're doing is you're getting that nice boost in dopamine, right? And then it's sustained versus with running, it kind of just like, it kind of dumps off again, because you're getting so much stress at the same time as you're getting that dopamine. So there's a lot of interaction in those two systems. So huge benefits there in terms of what we're able to actually get accomplished with zone 2 work. There is no drawbacks as long as you're staying within those time parameters that we talked about, and you're staying away from doing your conditioning with your strength training. You're going to get all of the benefits of doing zone 2 work across the board.
Here's your drawback. You can't play your Xbox. You can't scroll on your phone, and you can't watch whatever crappy reality TV show that you're watching that you've convinced yourself is somehow beneficial to you and your family's growth. That's it. Those are your drawbacks, is you cannot sit around and do nothing and watch things and play something that doesn't really benefit. I'm not a big video game guy. I used to be. I don't care about playing video games for recovery and not going around, but still do your conditioning. I mean, that's obviously the wiggle room.
Really what you're describing here as a drawback is just time, right?
I don't have my derp time, man. Yeah, what did I say to you? I said, Justin, I'll have no derp time. You said, right. That's
here's the thing though, Dave, is if we removed that 30 minutes of derp time and gave it to that 30 minutes of zone 2 work, what ends up happening is the efficiency of my brain increases, right?
I can learn things.
When I get an improved efficiency of my mental and psychological functions, I then become more efficient with my time, which could lead to more derp time.
Maybe.
And still doing my zone 2 work.
Well, your derp time, it connects. Your derp time can now be educational time. I'm going to read for 30 minutes at night before bed or to start my day, or people do like their like daily devotionals. Like they make time for that. That is for your mental and spiritual health. Why don't you do something that's going to help lower your stress and anxiety, depression, and any of these metabolic disorders, like your risk of them? Like you're making time for that. You can make time for other things. That's not a shot at anyone who does that. If you can make time for that, you can make time for zone 2 cardio. And by the way, just on derp, I think that I first started hearing that word probably 10, 12 years ago. And I just consistently like saying it because it's like the F word. You can apply it as an adjective, a noun, a verb, legitimately anything. So it is my favorite word of all time. And I don't think that there will be a word that will top it. So I just wanted to let everyone know.
Not one that's going to be deemed politically correct anyways.
Yeah, for sure.
So, the outcome of this is that, again, if you can just make that time, and it could be 2 bouts, 30 minutes a week, again, of specific zone 2 work.
Sure.
We're not counting the general walking that I tend to have all my people do daily. Mm-hmm. We're not counting that. This is separate, right?
Yep. Which you already gave examples of,
air
down, kettlebell complex, dumbbell. Yeah, get the heart rate going, bring it back down. Rest intervals, I think 60 to 90 seconds is probably the specific good time.
If you're doing mixed modality work,
right,
your rest interval has to be, generally 60 to 90 seconds is enough to bring you back down to about 115. You start back, bringing it back up to that range where you want it to be, and then you rest.
Yeah, wear a heart rate monitor, or if you have a smartwatch,
yes,
that's always good to track it. And if you don't, I mean, you can feel when your heart rate, just putting your hand there, your fingers there, to know hey, like I'm pretty gassed right now. Like, let me just do like 5 to 7 really deep breaths in through the nose for 3 to 5 seconds, hold it for 3 to 5 seconds, breathe out for 3 to 5 seconds. And we've talked about that. I mean, I think that was like the first module in the CPPS certification was breathing. And I said, wow, like we're really getting in the nitty gritty. That's another episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, absolutely. I mean, bringing it down and like knowing like what's my level and doing the equation, like you said, that's 0.6 to 0.8 of your perceived max heart rate, doing the work beforehand. It goes back to increased communication with your coach, whether it's one of us or someone else, and understanding the why and just telling your coach or anyone professional, even just in your life, like, hey, like, what does this mean? And like, I want to learn. That's why I'm asking. So, I mean, that's what this podcast is all about, but it's also about understanding that we don't know everything and we're willing to learn if there's a different perspective. Like you said, before you started doing the zone 2 and to where you are now, 6 years later, dramatically different improvements in health, metabolic function, stress, anxiety. I mean, just everything.
And I'm just going to throw it out there. All of those benefits for me certainly happened and they're all amazing.
Yeah.
But like the bulk of the benefit that was the most noticeable for me was losing 12% body fat, 10% body fat.
Right.
So if that's the way that it works for you, I mean, there's a litany of other things that happen when you lose that much body fat, provided that you're maintaining your muscle, right? So for me, I was gaining muscle while I was losing body fat simply because I was eating plenty of protein and I was doing my zone 2 work 3 to 4 days a week for X amount of time, whatever. So the easiest application is that you go out and you do a very brisk walk, right? Or even a very light jog if you're capable, say like a military cadence style jog. It's almost like the offensive lineman will call it a jiggy jog, where they're just kind of, you're not taking big steps.
Yeah.
But you're watching your heart rate and you're staying in that 60 to 70%. That's the easiest application outside of the gym. Inside of the gym, you get on the elliptical for 30 to 40 minutes and you maintain that zone 2 pace the whole entire time. Those are the easiest ways to apply this into your workout regimen. The other stuff, you can do the other stuff like the mixed modality, but ultimately, whether it be cyclical or even like not everybody has a sled, but really sled dragging is the best way, in my opinion.
No, absolutely. We didn't really talk about it. Yeah, I think we should do an episode on sleds.
And we can, but ultimately, like you're able to pick a weight that gets your heart rate up to a certain amount, but it won't go above that, and you can pace yourself for X amount of time. The mixed modality or like the kettlebell stuff, that's for people that are very type A and they just can't stand to be on a piece of equipment for more than 5 minutes at a time. Fine. For most of y'all out there, that the easiest application is just to get out and do something that's very cyclical, that's low impact for 30 to 40 minutes, maintaining that 60 to 70% of your max heart rate. That's like the barest of the bare.
Right. Well, I say we end right there. Before we cut, I'll just say, everyone, the support has been great. I know that we've had a few of our episodes uploaded already, got them on YouTube and Spotify, considering putting it on another platform just based on where we see things going. But yes, just a really, thank you to everyone who's listened from day one. Justin, I think your mom commented on Spotify, or was it YouTube? I love that. My mom would not know how to do that. And I will just say that I just think that the overwhelming support from like your clients, from my friends and family clients, it's been great. We really, really appreciate it. And if this, hits big, like it's not because like we're geniuses or because of this and that. It's because we believed in ourselves, and then the people closest to us, Megan for you, and then Emily for me. And I set up a new little office area with some of my animals, and then our my wife, and my son's picture up here. He's going to be a Pablo Picasso, hopefully, or a Cezanne. But it starts at home, and it starts with believing in yourself. And I feel like believing in yourself begins with your family really saying, hey, I really do think you can do this.
And the one thing that you'll never be able to say about me is that I'm going to stop learning.
Yeah.
I'm very blue collar in the way that I go about things. And I'm also, I tend to take a white belt mentality into everything, meaning that if I don't know something, I'm going to find out the answer. And I'm never going to stop learning. I'm constantly reading and trying to learn different things so that I can provide as much knowledgeable information, as much research information, and even some of the stuff that's outside of the research that I've tested. That's another big thing, is like our ability to test and experiment different things,
right,
to see what works and what doesn't, because then we can apply that to the real world and life. So with that being said, Dave, what is like the best way that people can support us and help us kind of grow on all our platforms?
Yeah, so on Spotify, we are the space conjugate space dad space podcast, and we currently have 12 Spotify followers. That's amazing. And then we are on YouTube. It is youtube.com/@ the conjugate dad podcast. 8 subscribers there, 2 videos so far.
So the best way for us to climb the charts on Spotify is if you give us 5-star reviews.
Yep, and follow us and subscribe.
And follow us. So the more of that we get, the better we can kind of climb the I guess fitness rankings.
Right. And we want to get the information out there. It's not to be the most well-known people. It's to get good information out there that we have from our own training, our clients' training, the readings that we're having, that not all these people who are, getting that Justin and I are reading are getting these millions of followers. We see, influencers getting millions of followers, and they're saying stuff that is just patently false. And we're trying to stick to the truth, and we're trying to stick to tested, peer-reviewed methods, and get it out to the masses, because we want to improve everyone's mental, physical health. That's all about. But just thank you for listening, and for another edition of the Conjugate Dad podcast with Justin Common Doris and Dave Chase. That's me. And we'll see you next time.
Peace.